Hello everyone, welcome back to the Python session. So today we are discussing about the continuous part of the data types. I would quickly write as today happens to be the Python class day 4, and in the last class I think we have discussed with respect to the typecasting, and we have also discussed with respect to the the other data types like byte and the byte array, how they are gonna work with respect to the Python. I think you already watched the previous day session, and you've gone through the notes also. I have shared you the notes also, so kindly go through that first, then you can watch up this particular video, right? So today we are going to discuss with respect to the next set of data types. So I would like to share the screen now. Let me minimize it. Let me go to the folder wherever it is present. I kept it in a music folder, interesting minds, Python, and let me consider the data type part 1. So in this, with respect to the data types, we have done with the fundamental data types, and all these fundamental data types are immutable in nature. That also we have discussed. It means that once the object is created, you cannot modify it. If you try to modify, instead of modification, a brand new object will be created. This is what we have studied under the mutability concept. And later we also studied with respect to the byte and byte array. Certainly today I won't start with range. Range I will explain it in between or in the last. So now let me start with respect to the advanced data types that is present with respect to Python. The most important topic in the Python language happens to be these advanced data types. Because wherever you go, so certainly you'll be using this, maybe in the field of data science if you go, or if you really want to store the data in an efficient way, if you want to achieve memory efficiency, then these data types plays a vital role in it. So today I'll be giving introduction to all these things, but not in detail. Just I'll give you introduction like what is this, what is tuple set, frozen set and dictionary. And again, as I said, I come back next string. I will explain in detail because so many things we have to speak with respect to string and list also, and tuple set, frozen set and dictionary in detail. I'll be explaining in the upcoming classes once I done with the control flow statements and input output statements and introduction to functions. So these kind of things are once it is done. So I'll take up the data types again, but today happens to be only kind of introduction to understand what exactly list, tuple set, frozen set, dictionary is all about, right? So what I'll be doing now is directly let me go to a program. Now, if in case, if I consider it as a is equal to 10, and if I tell it as print, and if I tell it as a, and in the next line I would like to tell it as print the type of a, you know that I'm trying to speak with respect to integer, right? I will save this and I will execute it. It is showing it as integer. The same thing follows for the floating point 10.5, save and execute it. And the same thing is also possible with respect to the next one, 10 plus 2j, save and execute it. After that, the same thing is applicable for true, that is Boolean. And the same thing is applicable for the string. Maybe I'll take up my name. So save and execute it, and you'll be having it as string. So these kind of things you would have seen in the last class. So same things you can convert into a byte array. So that is also possible. Like if you want to do the conversion, you can do that. But the point is, in all these cases, if I try to consider the variables, it can hold only one element at a time. So I don't want to do in that way. Now I need such a data type where one variable should be holding more than one element. That means I should be able to give it as 10 comma 20 comma 30 comma 40, like this I have to give. Are you getting the point? But if I try to give like this, 100% it is not going to accept. You can see it here. So save it and execute it. If it is accepting also, it is showing it as tuple, which is a next data type. I'll be explaining that on you. But the point is, you cannot store the multiple values. That is not gonna possible. If you want to really store it, for that itself, they have given one data type called as list. What do you mean by list? Maybe if you're going for shopping, so you'll make a list of the items which you have to bring back to the home, right? So you'll make a note of it, right? What are the things that you want to bring? So same way here also, to represent the list, they have given two ways. One thing is you can take a square bracket and you can save it and you can execute it. It is going to show it as list. Can you see? Empty square bracket means that means it's a list. Or you can also take it up in this way. If you really want to take up a list, then you can make use of a list function, right? So let me save it and execute it. Can you see? It is showing a list and followed by it is showing it as a type. So let me consider as a list function and I'm going to execute it. Can you see? Again, it is showing it as a list. Either you can go with the square bracket or you can make use of a list function to create a list. Okay, what next? After creating the list, we are going to have an element here. I'll keep it as empty string. Empty list, and I will take it as list. And list from now onwards, as for our reference, we'll be calling it as LST. I'll be calling it as LST. So you can take whatever the variable that you want. What this is going to do for us, if you ask me, this is going to provide the empty list. What is the another way? The another way happens to be LST and followed by you can call a list function. This will also provide you an empty list, right? Now I want to store the elements. If you want to store the element, you're going to consider it as LST equals, take the square bracket and take it as 10, right? So when you take it as 10, save it and execute it. So can you store the single element? 100% yes. So in the same way, I'll copy this one and I will paste it back. And can I take a multiple elements for the list? 20, maybe 30, save and execute it. Yes, it is considerable. In the same way, I have a doubt. Single element can be stored in a list. I would like to tell it as a single element can be stored in a list. My doubt is that I can also store multiple elements. There is no problem in that. So I would like to say that 10, 20, 30 all are integer type. That means there are same type. Same type means there are homogeneous, right? That is what I'm trying to tell. List can store homogeneous type of elements. This point you have to keep it in the mind. Next, can I have a different type? Say suppose if I take up a student information, maybe the ID number happens to be 18 and the name happens to be like Virat, and maybe height happens to be say suppose 5.9, and maybe what else? So is a selected candidate for Team India true? So like this, I can have multiple values of a different data types. Can I store this one? Save it and execute it. Is that acceptable? Yes, it is acceptable. So what is the meaning of this? In the list, you can store homogeneous element. At the same time, list can store heterogeneous type of elements, right? So these are the two things which you need to understand. Now the next point, when it comes to the list, can I store a duplicate values? I would like to consider it as 10, 20, 30, 10, 40, 50, maybe 20 and 80. Can I store it? Is that possible? Save and execute. 10, 20, 30. After that again 10 is there. 40, 50, again 20 is there. So duplicates are allowed in the list. Duplicates are allowed in the list. And whenever you are printing something, so LST equals, if you give it as 10, 20, 30, and if you save and if you execute, how you have given the data in the same way it is representing back. It means that always list is going to preserve the insertion order. If you insert 10, 10 will be in that place, 20, 20, 30, 30, and so on. So I can tell it as list always, always, okay, preserved the order of insertion, right? This is the next point which you have to remember. And next I'm going to consider a list, and when I'm taking a list, I'm considering it as 10, 20, and for this I'm going to consider few extra values, like I want to consider add few elements. I mean to say that if I want to add, there is a method, more often on the methods and other things I'll speak it in detail when I take up the list as a whole concept. Today it's a quite an introduction part, but you have a method called as append. If you add append, so I would like to consider it as a method, and here I'm going to consider it as maybe add 30. And next if I print this one, you can observe, save, and execute. So you'll be having 10, 20, 30. What is the meaning of that? First meaning is that, let me write it here. List is growable in nature. Growable in nature. This is what the first point you have to understand. The second point is that whenever you are having the list like this, say suppose I want to do some modification. What is the modification? I want to access this one, say suppose LST, and if you want to consider it as LST, and let me make it as like this. LST of 0 is what I want to access, maybe 0 itself, and I want to change it as maybe what. Okay, 333 is what I'm gonna change it out. So if I try to modify, is the modification is going to happen or not? Let me check it out. So absolutely I can modify the element which is present in the list. It means that list is, I would like to tell it as list is mutable in nature. If you're able to modify it, that means it is mutable in nature. And if you want to remove some elements from this, say suppose I have lst dot remove option, and I'm gonna tell it as you please remove 20 from it, save it, and execute it. See, 20 has been removed. So elements can be added or removed, or in the above example you have seen, updated. Elements can be added or removed or updated in the list, right? There's also one more point which you need to keep it up. Okay, so if these many things are there in your mind, so then I'll go for a list multiplication, which another thing which you need to understand. I would like to consider it as LST into 2, whatever the value that I'm having now. Save it, execute it. So I have to restore it back to the list, then only it's gonna work. I'll take it as LST, just execute it back. So you can see multiplication is also possible. So multiplying the list element is possible. Multiplying the list elements is possible. As I said, it is just an introduction. Okay, there are so many things, so many other things which we need to discuss on the list, which we will do it later. So again, if I start executing one by one, so I'm just giving the programs here. So it is your duty to just again go back and type and execute and see out the results for this. and I'm giving the corresponding points like what these things are going to do. So let me consider this one, select all, copy it, come back to the notes wherever it is present. I'll come for the list. Let me write it here and paste it back, right? So don't get confused here. So it's a matter of a time. Just have patience and look at the notes carefully. You'll be understanding each and every point which I've already discussed, right? So let me put it here and here, just aligning it for you. It will be easy for understanding. Adding this. Okay. Yeah. I hope I'm completely clear with this. And this is what I've given as a points. If you want to represent a group of values as a single entity where the insertion order is required, you can see it here. Insertion order is required. 2, reserve and duplicates are allowed, then we should go with the list data type. This you have to keep it in the mind. What are the points that you have to remember with respect to the list? Insertion order is preserved, heterogeneous objects are allowed, duplicates are allowed, it's global in nature, and value should be enclosed within the square bracket. These are the things which you need to understand. Is that clear? This is a bit introduction, a small introduction about the list data type. And whenever it comes to the list, the same thing I would like to show it here. So as I shown you in the program. So these are the points which you should remember as the introduction part. But when it comes to the actual concept with respect to the list, there are so many things which I need to speak out. Like there is a concept called as list comprehension. There are so many methods are there: append, remove, pop, and there is a concept called as shadow copy and deep copy under the list. And so many things are there which I would definitely be doing in the upcoming classes. But this is a bit introduction towards the list. That's all. Okay, so upon the list, you have a concept of slicing also. That also I'll be speaking it up maybe in the upcoming classes. But what is list? Only that is what you have to understand in today's class. What are the characteristics and features of the list and the complete mechanism of the list? You'll be understanding in the upcoming classes, right? So that is the reason I've given it as a note point. So everything I've done it in one single example, so no need of it. And let me give it here. And list is growable in nature. Based on the requirement, we can increase or decrease the size. That also you have already seen today. And followed by, I have a note point here. In if it is a list, then the characteristics are, it is ordered, whatever the order you have given, 10, 20, 30, same thing will be there. It is mutable in nature, because yesterday itself we have seen. So if you are not able to change the data, so then it is immutable. And more often on mutable and immutable in memory perspective, I'll speak when I take up the list in detail, not now. Okay, but you can see that I have updated here. You can see where yeah, this one. See, I have updated the value. Instead of 10, I've taken it out and I've put it as 333. So it is mutable in nature. Modifications is possible, and heterogeneous collection of elements is nothing but list. So where the duplicates are also allowed. These are the things that you need to understand. Is that clear for everyone? Yes. Now, if you have really understood the concept of list, I can easily explain you the concept of tuple, right? How, sir, if you ask me? Let me go back here. And after going back, I'm gonna do the changes here itself. That could be the better option. So I will comment all these things for a while. Just keep observing here. I will, whenever I'm going to take up the tuple, so for the tuple, I am going to say it as tup, tuple. That's how you can just take it as t, that is also fine. But I'll be taking it as tup as the variable. Whichever you want, you can take it. There is no compulsory. But for understanding purpose, let us consider tuple as tup. And let me consider this as the tup, right? Tuple data type. So what is this tuple data type? Just now I have shown you, whenever you are going to have a multiple elements within you, like if you consider it as 10, 20, and 30 like this, if you save it, and if you execute it, so internally this is considered as 10, 20, 30, and data type is considered as tuple. But the point is, whenever you take a multiple elements, you can see that a simple brackets is added for this. What is the meaning of that? Always a tuple is represented by using a simple brackets, right? So I'm going to consider it from the beginning. So just a second. I'll be removing it out. I'll just put a simple brackets, save and execute. You can see the empty one, it's called as tuple. So if not, you can consider with respect to the tuple happens to be, use the tuple function and call save and execute, and it is showing tuple again, right? Now, when it comes to the tuple, can you store a single element is the question. So if you are feeling yes, then absolutely you are wrong. One single element can be stored in the list, but one single element directly you cannot store in the tuple. What do you mean by that, sir? Observe now. I will save it and I'm going to execute it, but it is going to show it as integer. Even though I'm putting it in the simple bracket, it is considering it as integer. Why? Because one single element, whenever you are going to type it here, so you will be not getting it as a tuple. Instead of you are going to get that's data's data type. If it is an integer, integer, float, float, complex, complex, so on. Now, what I'll be doing it here is, if you want to make a single element as a tuple, then you have to put a comma here. Clear with this? If you save it and if you execute it, so then it is considered as a tuple. I hope I'm completely clear with this. Yes? Okay. Now keep observing. So after this, the next point happens to be empty list you have done. So I will keep writing it here. Empty tuple followed by, this is also empty tuple using tuple function. This is what you have to remember. And so we'll be calling it as single element in the tuple. And the next one happens to be, so can you store the similar data type? So I would like to delete here. Yeah. So I would like to consider tuple happens to be, take it like this, 10, 20, 30. Save it, execute it. Homogeneous element can be stored inside the tuple. So what I'll be taking out here is, list can store the homogeneous type of element, that I would certainly copying it and pasting it back, and just I will change the word for tuple, right? You can observe this. Tuple can store the homogeneous types of element. If that is S, then it should be also storing the heterogeneous type of elements. So I'm gonna copy this one, copying it, come back. Don't see the commented part, just observe the uncommented one. I'll consider it as TUP, and homogeneous now I have converted into heterogeneous, and I will consider this happens to be tuple. Save it and execute it. I'm sorry, I have not changed the type of bracket. So I will change it to simple brackets like this. Save it and execute it. So I can see that it can store heterogeneous type of element also. So it is almost like a list itself, but only one change is there. What is that one change? I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. Now I'm going to consider this duplicate, copy it, bring it back, paste it up, and here type it as TUP, and here you consider it as a simple bracket. So after doing that, these the duplicates are allowed. Let us see. You can see it here 10, 20, 30, 10, 40, 50, 20, 80. So duplicates are allowed in tuple also. Duplicates are allowed in tuple. Okay, that's fine. So what is the next point? What is the next point if you ask me? So I'm gonna delete these three things. Next, I will consider the order of insertion. I'll copy it, paste it back. and let me consider it as tup, make it a simple bracket, and save and execute it. And here also it is showing it as 10, 20, 30 only. That means the order of insertion is maintained. So I will consider this happens to be the tuple. Always preserve the order of insertion. Okay. What next is that tuple is growable in nature. I will copy it and I will paste it back. And instead of this, I will consider it as tup and make it as a simple bracket. And here also I'll make it a simple bracket. tup dot append the method I will use, and let me try to add some number how we add it for the list. So save it and execute it. It is going to give me an error saying that no attribute called as append. Okay, append is not there for the tuple. Let us consider that. Next, what we'll be doing is, maybe I'll comment it here. Tuple tup dot add of 30, like that I will take, save it and execute it. Again it is showing there is nothing called as add for the tuple. Okay, like this, if you keep on adding whatever the methods that you want, but if you try to add a element to the tuple, it is not going to work. Why? Because tuple, once it is created, it is fixed, it cannot be altered, it is not growable in nature. That is the point which I need to explain it here. Tuple is not growable in nature. This point you have to keep it in the mind. That's why I've shown both of the things, right? Let me cancel this one. Let me go to the next point. When I go to the next point, so I would like to take up the next one with respect to mutability. Can I access the element which is present in the 0th index? Is that possible? Print top of 0, save and execute. Yes, you can access the element which is present in the index. That is possible. But can I modify the element? I mean to say, accessing the tuple element is possible, whereas modification is not possible. I mean to say, tup of 0 I will take, and again I will change it to 333, and later I'll try to print it out. Save it, execute it. It is going to show that tuple object does not support assignment. What is the meaning of this? Tuple data type is such a data type where it is not mutable in nature. It is immutable in nature. That is what I'm trying to tell you here. Paste it out, which means, let me write it here. Tuple is immutable in nature. How you have fundamental data types which are immutable in nature, in the same way here also this is immutable in nature. This is the one more point which you need to remember. I think I've covered almost all the points. So elements you cannot add, you cannot delete it, but only you can access it. That is possible. And is the tuple multiplication is possible? I'll consider tup into 2 and let me store it back to tup. And if you multiply also, you have to keep it same thing, right? So it is not gonna take it up. You can consider, okay, the 2 multiplication is possible with respect to this, but the new changes is not gonna accept it. So I'll be considering it happens to be multiplying the tuple elements is possible. Copying it, come back and paste it. Multiplying the tuple elements is possible, right? Yeah. Now, whenever you people are observe this example, especially multiplying the tuple, so immediately you may get a doubt. So, sir, just now we have told tuple is immutable in nature, which means we cannot modify it. I told you, right? If you really have done the modification, if it is reflected on the same memory location, that means modifications are done. If it is not reflected on the same memory location, that means a brand new object is created, right? Let us check that also. How to check that? Maybe before this line, I would be considering like this: print the ID of DUP, and I'll copy this one and I'll be pasting it back here and save it and execute it. So is the address are same? Address are different. That means whenever you try to do this kind of multiplication, we will feel like, oh, modification has been done on the same, but no, internally this is a different tuple altogether. That's what I've said. If you try to modify the object, instead of modification, brand new object will be created. Is that clear for everyone? Yes. So let me cancel this one, and later these things again I will speak up in detail when I take up the tuple again. But today happens to be just an introduction class. I will select all, copy it. After copying it, come back to the notes, and after the go to the tuple one and paste it out, right? So again, I would say, if you want to create the empty tuple, what you should do? If you want to create the empty tuple using the function, what you should do? Single element, how you can keep it in the tuple, and after that, tuple can store, homogeneous element, and it can store heterogeneous elements. Tuples always preserves the order of insertion. Tuple is not growable in nature. Accessing the elements from the tuple is possible, whereas modification is not possible, right? So I would like to mention it here. Tuple is immutable in nature, and multiplying the tuple elements is possible, right? The only difference between the list and tuple is that list is mutable in nature. You can add, remove, update. So it is mutable. You can modify it. It's modifiable in nature. Tuple is non-modifiable. You cannot add, you cannot delete, you cannot update. The only one thing that you can do is multiplying the tuple, elements, that is possible. And that is also not a direct modification. Just now we have checked with the address. So it's a two different objects which are present in the memory, right? So these are the points which you need to remember with respect to the list and with respect to the tuple as an introduction. I think I'm completely clear with this, right? Yes. So I hope you got a complete clarity on, what is a list, at least a basic idea. So if not the in detail, the basic idea. Again, I'll take up the list. Again, I'll take up the tuple where I have to explain more on this data types, which are very important. So this as an introduction, you keep it with you, that's all, right? So list is done, tuple is done. But before going to the next one, the points here, I'll read it out. Tuple data type is exactly same as the list data type, except it is immutable. We cannot change the values, as simple as that. Tuple elements can be, represented within the parenthesis, simple one. And you have seen the result now. Note point. Tuple is a read-only version of list. That means when you can't do the modification, you can only read the elements. That is possible. Next one, a very simple one, which we are going to consider it as a range data type. What is this range data type? Range, so something it's telling, right? I know when you go for a shopping, especially, you will ask to yourself, or you will ask to the companion who's coming with you. So today we are going for a shopping. What is your range of selection, or what is your budget? That you will call it as like, what is your range? Okay. And when you go for any stores, they will also ask, when you go for buying the clothes, or when you want to buy a shoe or whatever it may be, they'll ask you in what range you want it. That means what is the length, or what is the max that you can spend there. So here also range data type represent the sequence of number. That means 0 to 10 is one range, something like that. So element present in the range data type are not modifiable. That will come back later. We'll see it. What is that? Program. Range data type is immutable. This you have to keep it in the mind. As integer, string, Boolean, complex, and float, and now including tuple. So this is also immutable in nature. So you have a form. What is that first form? If you consider range of 10, so it will generate 0 to 9. So let me see this through an example. I'll cancel this. Let me consider print. So range is also a function. Print range of 10. Save it and execute it. So I'll be getting it as from 0 to 10. So this is the value that is applicable. So that is what it is typically showing it here. So whenever you have these kind of things, you can have it in a different way. Say suppose I'll take, okay, for range, I'll consider it as R. So R happens to be range of 10. And if I tell it as print R, so save and execute it. Again, it is showing in the same way. All the elements, if you want it, just put a looping statement on this. Quite simple. I'll be considering it as for I in R. So I'm gonna tell it as print I, right? For loop I will explain, don't worry. So how we are writing it. So if you tell it as 10, always it will start from 0 and it will go up to 9. So totally it would be 10. That's how the range function is going to work. So let me consider this example. Select all, copy this, minimize this, and come back, and you can have it here. So paste it, right? Later. Form 2. So from 10 to 20, I mean, you can have the starting point here and you can have the ending point here. That also is going to work. Let me show you an example for that. Let me remove this, and I would like to tell it as 10 comma 20. So starting number would be 10. It will go up to 90. As simple as that. You can see it here. And maybe if I tell it as 100, you can see here it will go up to 99. I hope I'm completely clear with this. So you can have a starting point, you can have a ending point as well. So I'll select this, copy this one, come back, and for the form to paste it. From 10 to 20, you can have it, it will go up to 90. So you can have a step size also, incremental in the way that you want. So how you can do that? Quite simple. If somebody asks you to write the tables in Python, it is quite easy. So you tell them the starting range happens to be, okay, 0, or you can tell it as the starting range happens to be the 10 that you can consider. Just now we have taken, right, 10, 20, and it has to step in the 2, the 2 part has to go on. So save it and execute it. You can see 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So like that, you can have the step size also. Don't you think it is almost similar to looking like your slicing operator that you have studied? Starting point, ending point, step size. Yes, but here, range function is used to generate some amount of values by using the starting and ending and step size. Slicing is cutting down the value, or slicing a part of the whole string, something like that. But here you can generate the values. That is the beauty of the range function. So whenever you go for the next form, we can access element present in the range data type by using the index. That is also possible. For example, I'll show you here. Let me come back, change it here. I'll consider maybe R equals the range of 10 comma 20. So in the next line, I would like to tell it as I want R of 0. So the R of 0, I will print it out directly. So please print me R of 0. So it is going to print the first value that happens to be 10. So what if I change this, copy it, paste it back. I want fifth one, save it, execute it. You can see 15 because it started from 10. 5 means 15 would be there. I hope I'm completely clear with this. Maybe here itself I will write it. You're gonna get it as 10 and you're gonna get it as 15. Select all, copy this, come back here, and below this, using the index, paste it back, right? So we cannot modify the values of the range data type. For that, I can use the same example. If I consider R of 5, and if I try to change it to 999, and if I try to print, or if I try to access R, that is also not required. You can see it is going to throw back the error for us. See, it is not going to support the item assignment, right? So equal symbol is what we're going to call it as assignment operator. Operator is our next concept. I will explain more there, but the point is, if you try to do it, it's not going to work for you, right? So let me come back here. You cannot modify it, paste it here. So we can create a list of values by using the range function. That is possible. How? If you ask me, let me give you an example using this. I will consider LST. So I am gonna consider the range function, and when I consider the range happens to be 10. So for, okay, print the type of LST, you can observe here. So it is going to give the data type as range, but I can do the explicit type casting, which you have seen yesterday. So I can convert this into list by telling it as a list, right? So I'm gonna write it as list list function, save it and execute it. So I'm getting it as list. I hope I'm completely clear with this. Say copy this one, paste it back, and let me show you the first one. So both the things are there, then you will get a idea on what I'm trying to speak it out. So here I'm gonna tell it as, this is nothing but range data type, right? So whenever you're taking for the first time, the range data type, and in the same way, if you take it, so this happens to be the list data type. So select, copy it. You can generate a list out of the range by using the explicit type casting technique. I hope I'm completely clear with this, right? Yes. So now let us consider the next one, which is happens to be the set data type. So set, I think in the school days that you have studied in the mathematics set. So that set and this set have so much of similarities. So what is that? So I'm gonna tell you with the example. So let me go here first. I'll show you the example, then you'll understand. Later I'll come back and I'll show you the features or the characteristics of the set. If I consider it as a LST, and I consider a square bracket, and I'll tell it as print LST and print the type of LST. So save and execute. It's gonna show us as a list. That's fine. So instead of LST, I'll make it as T, and T stands for tuple. And instead of square bracket, I will make it as a simple bracket. Save and execute, and it's gonna call me as tuple. If you remember your school days or college days, how you're gonna represent a set? Can you recall? Very good. You are gonna represent a set using the flower brackets like this. But in Python, there one change has been made. If you consider a square bracket or an empty, so you're not going to get the string, I mean the set. Let me save this and execute it. You can see the changes. You are going to get the dictionary. About dictionary, maybe in a couple of minutes I'll speak. But if I want to create an empty set, this is not going to work. This will create a empty dictionary. So I will consider for the set, I will tell it as S itself. So if I try to print S, and if I try to do this, and I would like to consider it as using the curly braces, or you can tell it as flower brackets, whatever you want, you can take it out. So I would like to tell it as using the curly braces. We cannot create empty set. So then how to create the empty set? See, how to create empty list you have seen, right? So now you have to see this also. So I will tell it as s equal set function you have to use, then save it, execute it. Now you are going to get the set. But whenever you are representing the set, then you have to use this curly braces. I mean to say that. So maybe I would like to set it as this is nothing but the empty set. Now I want to create the few elements in this. I will take it as 10. Save and execute. Yes, you can see one element set it is showing. So I would like to tell it as single element can be stored in the set. Next, S 10, 20, 30, and save it, execute it. So 10, 20, 30, multiple elements. I mean to say that homogeneous elements can be stored. But the craziest part of this example is if I save and execute, can you see 10, 20, 30? It is showing it in the same way, but don't come to the conclusion that the order of insertion is preserved. You can see now, I would like to consider it as 22, 55, 99, 33, and 77. Save it and execute it. See, first 33 is there, next 99, 22, 55, 77. What do you mean by that? In this case, when it comes to the string, so order of insertion is not maintained or it is not preserved. That's what I can say, right? Let me come back to that. But before that, I'll go for a heterogeneous elements. So I would like to consider this happens to be the same example 10, comma, Virat, comma 5.9, comma, maybe I'll consider it as true, save and execute. Okay, the previous result will be shown. I'm sorry for that. Let me comment this, save and execute. Heterogeneous elements are also stored, but the order of insertion is not maintained. So I would like to consider this happens to be heterogeneous elements can be stored in set, right? But the order of insertion is not maintained. That is what I can say it here. Next, apart from that, the few things which I need to explain about here happens to be, I would consider 10, 20, 10, 30, 40, 20, 10. So save it and execute it. You can see 40, 10, 20, 30. Only individual entries are there. What is the meaning of this? So when it comes to the set do not allow duplicate elements. This is what I can say, right? I think you are understanding the features and properties of each and every data type as an introduction. What is list, what is tuple, what is set and dictionary. And each and every data type, again, I will retake it in detail so there you will understand even more in a better way, where I'll give you the comparison between list and tuple and set, and again the tuple and list and set, the various combinations I'll be giving up for you, right? No worries. Can I add the element to the set? I will consider this happens to be, maybe I'll give some space here, 10, 20, save and execute. So it's here, that's fine. For this, there is a method called as add, s dot add, and I would like to consider it as 30, save it and execute it. You can see, so elements can be added to the set. Elements can be added to the set, and at the same time if you want to remove, so s dot remove of I would like to consider the element happens to be 10, save and execute it. Yes, it is possible. 10 can be removed. Elements can be removed from the set. So this is also possible, right? What next? So whenever you are having the set, homogeneous elements are there, heterogeneous elements are there, order of insertion is not maintained, but duplicates elements are not allowed, adding can be done, removing can be done. Now let us see with respect to modification. When you go for modification, say suppose I will consider s of 2 equals maybe 999. I'll try to do the modification. So save it and execute it. And you can see we are getting the error. Set object is not supporting the item assignment. What is the meaning of that? Set is also immutable in nature. That's what the meaning. Or addition is possible, removal is possible. Set is mutable in nature. Here is the junction where many of the students will get confused who are going to study the Python for the first time, right? So I'll just paste it up for you. When you try to do the modification, so it is not accepting. But when you go for addition, it is accepting. When you go for a removal, it is accepting. And when you do addition and subtraction, what is the meaning of that? Set is growable in nature. That is the meaning, right? Yes or no? So when you do the modification, it is not possible. Why this modification is not possible, you have to understand, so that you will get a complete clarity on whether the set is mutable or immutable. It's quite simple, guys. You are telling S of 2. S of 2 means you tell me, is the order of insertion is maintained in the set? 100% no. And how you will come to know what is there in the second index? When you enter, it is 20, but internally it may be something else, right? Because the places are shifting. It is not going and sitting like 10, 20, 30, 40. When you give 10, 20, 30, 40, instead of that, it is sitting it as 40, 20, 30, 10. So in that, if you tell S of 2, so which data you're trying to access or which data you're trying to modify, right? Then modification is not possible. I mean, updating the data is not possible, but adding the elements if it is accepting, removal of element if it is accepting. Okay, I think I missed that. So S dot remove of 10. So if the removal is accepting, then this particular set is considered as mutable in nature. You can cross verify, check in the internet. So if you are getting some other answers, do let me know, right? I would like to consider this as elements can be removed from the set. And the next point happens to be, I would like to tell it as here, because of because the order of insertion is not preserved by the set, updating the value, let me write it in the next line, updating the value updating the value updating the value of the set is not possible. And I would like to give a line here. Still, we can add or remove the set elements. Hence, set is mutable in nature. Is it clear for everyone? Okay, so only tuple is immutable in nature, whereas list is mutable in nature and set is also mutable in nature, and range function is immutable in nature. These are the points today we have studied, right? I will select all these things, copy it, minimize it, close this one, and then come back here and paste it. Now you see the point. If you want to represent a group of values without a duplicates where the order is not important, then we will go for set data type. First one, insertion order is not preserved. Yes, that we came to know. Duplicates are not allowed. Yes. Heterogeneous objects are allowed. Yes. Index concept is not applicable. You cannot have the index here because randomly the values are stored. How randomly it is stored also I will explain. Set is going to make use of a concept called as hashing. So hashing process, if you understand, then you will clearly come to know that how the set elements are stored in the memory. And is that mutable in nature? 100%. Yes, it is mutable collection of elements and it is growable in nature. I hope I'm completely clear with this, right? Now, set is growable in nature. Based on our requirement, we can decrease or increase the size of it. And when it comes to the program, you cannot create the empty set using the curly braces, because if you try to do that, dictionary you will get it. So that is the reason set function you have to use to get a empty set. Single element can be stored, homogeneous elements can be stored, heterogeneous elements can be stored, order of insertion is not maintained, set do not allow the duplicate elements. This much if you keep it in the mind, so as a fresher in the beginning, so that is more than sufficient. But in detail with respect to the set, I would be speaking when I take up the set as a separate concept. Now we are still in the data types where all the 14 data types I'm giving you the introduction and few informations about these things, right? Yes. Now coming back to the next line, elements can be added, elements can be removed from this, and set is growable in nature. Okay, just let me move it here where it went. Let me, yeah, now it's working. Yeah, you can see set is growable in nature, right? And what is the next point? So let me keep it here as it is. Because of this, order of insertion is not preserved by the set. Updating the value of the set is not possible, but still we can add, remove. So hence the set is mutable in nature. So I'm gonna have the print statement here. Yes. Let me go for a frozen set. So what is this, sir? Same name is there, frozen set. Frozen set is exactly similar to the set. Whatever I've just now spoken about the set, everything is same. But the only difference is set is mutable, where you can add the elements, you can delete, remove the elements. But frozen set is immutable in nature. See, name only suggesting frozen, that means freezed, so it cannot move. So that is the meaning of that. So for that, let me have an example. Come back here. So almost same example I can be using it here. So I would like to consider this one, remove it, and remove it, remove it. Okay, remove it. Okay, do observe now. I'll comment it for a time being. So 10, 20, 30. So this is a normal set. When you have a normal set, so if you want to add the element or if you want to remove the element, which you can do it up. So see now. So it's a set 10, 20, 30 is there. That's fine. I want to add it. So can I add it? 100% yes. Addition is possible, right? Can I remove it? Removal is possible. Yes, it is possible because it is mutable in nature. Now see the changes. So it's a regular set. Let me comment it and put it here. and let me copy it and paste it back. And here I'm going to tell it as this happens to be the frozen set. So how you are going to get the frozen set? Quite simple. First of all, you have to have the set. So when you have the set, for the set, I'm going to consider a variable and I will tell it as function by name frozen set. You can see the color coding, and for the input, I will give it as set. Now, whatever the normal set is there, now it has been frozen. Frozen means you cannot do the changes, as simple as that. If you are not able to do the changes, it means it is immutable in nature. Now see, first I'll try it out with displaying the element. So I'm sorry, let me make it as fs and type of fs. Save it and execute. So first one is general set, next one is frozen set 10, 20, 30. Can you see? Class type happens to be frozen set. Now I'm gonna consider the addition part. Let me comment these two things which is not required. Save and execute it. Can you see 10, 20, 30? So can you add the elements? Is that possible? Let me check it out. 10, 20, 30. So I want to add this one. So fs dot I will do. Sorry for that. Fs dot add. Can you see? So it is giving me the attribute error. There is nothing called as add. So you cannot add the elements to the frozen set. Paste it here. Next. The same thing I will apply it here also. I will comment this one and I will tell it as fs here and remove it. If addition is not possible, removal is also not possible. Getting the attribute error, copy it, close it, and comment it here. And from here to here, I'm going to delete it. And in this place, I'm going to paste that error. So it would be good for you when you're reading the notes. Okay, so now observe. So now you got the point. So what is the difference between the regular array and sorry. So frozen set and the regular set, right? Yes. So I'm gonna consider this one. Let me select all, copy this, come back and paste it. So why frozen set we required? Because set is mutable in nature. If you freeze it, it will become immutable in nature. That's all. Let me have it here. So it's a frozen set, the regular set, both the examples are there in with you. So I'll write it here. So what we are going to use to make a set as a frozen set, make use of a frozen set function. That you have to keep it in the mind. Next, the last one, or not last one, last but one, but none is easier. So dictionary is the major one. So I'll explain you how this is going to work. Dictionary, where you have heard about this one? I think you have heard with respect to the English dictionary book, the Oxford Dictionary. You know, what do you mean by that? So all the meanings will be there. So if you observe that dictionary, if you have ever seen the dictionary, the English Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge University Dictionary, so on, there would be a word. And next to that, there would be a meaning of that word. So, if you check it out, say suppose you have the word like any word that you can take, perplexed, or if you consider it as a flabbergasted. So these kind of English words, when suddenly somebody is using, you'll be not knowing the meaning. So what you'll do, you go back to the English dictionary and you'll check it out. So next to the word, so you'll be having the meaning of it. What is the actual meaning of that word? So same way here also. Whenever you have a dictionary concept, you have two things. One, we are going to consider it as key, and one we are going to call it as value. What is that? Let me show you now. When I come back to the program, cancel this one. I'll consider D is equal to flavor bracket. And in the next line, I'll tell it as print the D. And next line, I will consider it as print the type of the D. And you know that whenever you are using the curly brackets, we are going to get dictionary instead of set. Save and execute it. Okay, D. Okay. So if you save and execute, you will get it as dictionary. So we are gonna get a empty dictionary, right? So instead of this, you can create using the function called as dict and save and execute it. Again, you'll get an empty dictionary. I would like to consider empty dict by using dictionary function, right? Now, let me move on. So if I want to store the element, I will tell it as 1, or maybe I'll tell it as 10. Save and execute it. I'm getting it as set. This is what you have to understand the difference. For set also, we will use flower brackets or curly braces. For dictionary also, we are going to make use of flower bracket or curly braces. But the difference is in the set, we are going to have one single element. But in dictionary, we'll be having two elements, and those two elements is a combination. What is the combination, sir? Just one element if you take, it is considered as a set. To make it as a dictionary, as I just now have told the example, right? You have a word, next to the word, you have a meaning of the word. Same thing. You will have a one element, colon, and you would be having another element. So suppose I'll call it as 10 is Tendulkar. This how I'm going to take it out, save it, execute it. Can you see? It is in the form of dictionary. I hope I'm completely clear with this. And this is what we are going to call it as key value pair. Key colon value pair. If you want to have a dictionary, so then you should always enter the element in the form of key value pair. Otherwise, it will be considered as a set. It will be not considered as, the dictionary. I hope I'm completely clear with this, right? So generally where we are going to use this one. So we are going to use it in the form of like student information. If I want to store, say suppose I'll consider maybe from roll number 1, and I will consider it like maybe Abhi, and maybe roll number 2 happens to be maybe Akash, so and so on. So like this, I can keep adding it. So I'll save it up and execute. You can see it is showing the result. And whenever I want to access it, so that is also possible. So I'm going to consider it as D happens to be, or I can directly access the value D of 1, you print it out. So like this, I would be telling. So print D of 1. So D of 1 means if you want to print the value, if you want to access the value, then you have to use this key as index number. See, for the dictionary, there is no index number. You have to keep it in the mind. But this key, whatever you are giving key, that itself you are going to make use of as a index number. I will save it and I'll be executing it. You can see I can easily access the value. But the point is here, whenever you are having in this way, I can store single element, I can store multiple elements, and all these things are there. I'll give you the point. So in dictionary, the elements are stored in the form of key value pair, where the key itself will act as index for the values. This point you have to keep it in the mind. So there would be no concept of indexing here also, just like a set. So instead of indexing, you can have the key. If you want value, if you want to access value, then you can use the corresponding key. That is how the dictionaries are designed. So if in case if you want to add the element to it, so you have an option like I can consider D of, maybe I will take up the key, brand new key, and I'm gonna consider it as Appu. So save and execute it. So I can see you can have it. So adding the elements is possible. Adding the elements to the dictionary is possible. So in the same way, the removal is also possible. So if you tell so and so key, it is possible. But dictionary, in detail, I'll be explaining, when I take up a dictionary as a concept. But today, just you have to understand it's a key value pair. Order of insertion, is not maintained. But because of the key numbers, the order of the insertion can be maintained. Say, like if you tell it as 1, 2, 3, 4 as the key. So based on that, it would be maintained, and there is no index, so key itself is acting like an index for the corresponding value. And the next thing is you can add the element. So I would like to consider this happens to be d of maybe 2, and I will change it as maybe Jackie. Modification, I'm trying to do it out here. So I can see instead of that, Akash, Jackie came and sat here. So which means that dictionary is mutable in nature because modification is possible, addition is possible, so deletion is also possible, adding or removing the elements is possible, so modification is possible, so hence it is mutable in nature. What else I can give it in the introduction part? So empty dictionary, individual dictionary, okay, that's fine. Yeah, about more often on the dictionary, there is a concept called as dictionary comprehension, and various examples on the inbuilt methods on the dictionary, maybe merging up of the dictionary. There are so many other concepts are there which I don't want to do it in the introduction part, because if I put a heading as dictionary, the almost half a class or whole class is required to explain the dictionary and dictionary related programs itself, so which I don't want to do it in the initial classes. As an introduction, this much if you know, that is more than sufficient. Like what is dictionary, okay, what is this key value pair, how the elements are stored, how empty dictionary is created, how you can you add the element, can you delete the element, can you update, I mean modify the element or not. So this much if you know, that would be more than sufficient in terms of dictionary part. So as I said, for everything, it's a introduction is what I'm giving. And again, coming back, I'll take up this from the string, list, tuple, set, frozen set, dictionary. In detail, I'll be doing it up back. So time being, I'm copying this one, and after copying it, come back here and paste it out. And whatever I've said, the same points would be here also. So if you observe, if you want to represent a group of values as key value pairs, then you should go with the dictionary data type. So that I have shown it here. So if you want to consider it as 10 colon Tendulkar, yes, you can have it here. And duplicate keys are not allowed. Okay, that point you have to remember. I have not told it. So you can see it here. So you cannot have a same element here. So I mean to say that I will take it as d of 1, which is already present, and I will try to give it as maybe James. You can see it here. If you try to give, if you try to take up the key which is already present, so instead of considering it as a new value, it will go and modify the value because key 1 is already there. So duplicate keys are not allowed. That is the point which you have to remember here. Let me come back and save it up for a while. Yeah, let me move it here as a notes part. Empty dictionary, how you can create it, key value pair combination, and okay, that's fine. So adding and removing is also possible here. So hence it is mutable in nature. Modification is also possible. So I'll bring it back here. So this is the maximum part about introduction with respect to the dictionary. Dictionary is mutable and order won't preserve. So on this, as I said, I have to speak something called as hashing process. So what is that hashing process? How it's gonna work? So all those things I'll be telling up when I take up these data types in detail, right? So till then, so consider it as only the introduction. So now coming to the note points, in general, we can use byte and byte array data type to represent the binary information like image, video, and file, etc. So in Python, data type is available, but yeah, long data type is available, but in Python 3, so it is not available. For everything, we are going to make use of integer. In Python, there is no char data type, so we are going to use string data type for even a single character or for a whole string. And coming to the last one, so I'll be considering this happens to be the none data type. What is this none data type? None means nothing. Okay, when you are going to get this none, so it's a bit of a crazy situation which you have to observe. I would like to consider up an example here. Let me go back, select this, cancel. So if you want to create a function, okay, in Python, this is not a function concept, but still, if you want to create, you have to consider it as DEF. That means define a function. So function name, I'll consider it as fun1, and this is how we are going to create a function. And after creating a function, you have to write the body. So I'll write to tell it as 10. So after telling this one, you'll come out of the function, and when you come out of next, you have to call the function. So I will call it as maybe fun1. Okay, so I'll be writing it as fun1. See, either you have to tell it as print this, or you have to access this. So when you write this kind of code, this is not a right way of coding. This is actually a stupidity where if you syntax wise there is no problem, but if you try to execute this one, you will get nothing. You can see answer, it is showing it as none. Why none? Whenever you are going to call a function, so it will call that particular function and you want to print this element. Whenever you want to print this element, either you have to return. So that's what on the functions I will speak in detail. But if you observe this example, this kind of codings, when you do, you will get a return type as nothing, and that nothing itself we are going to call it as none data type, right? Select this, copy. When I speak up on the functions, you'll get this point. Let me write it here. Okay, so it has been removed. Okay, I'll write it up for you. So fun1, and within this, I'm gonna tell it as a is equal to 10, and coming out of it, and if I tell it as print, and when I'm printing, if I tell it as fun1, call the fun1, and the result, the what you call it as the output for this happens to be the none. So why it is none? It is not going to return anything. None means nothing or no value associated. If the value is not available, then to handle such type, in that cases, none has been introduced. It is something like null value in Java. So if nothing is written, and it is called as a null. That's all with respect to none data type. There is no much greater point in this, right? So along with that, you have a few more things which I need to explain. So this completes all the 14 data types which are mentioned. So one last concept is there, but it is not a data type concept, a separate concept, which I've added it here. So that also if we complete, so this completes the whole data type. What is that concept, sir? The concept is very simple. We'll call it as escape characters. So what is this escape characters? In a string literals, we can use the escape character to associate a special meaning. I'll give some of the examples so that you can easily understand. So I'm going to ideally, unfortunately, I have closed it. I'm gonna consider file open instead of creating a new one. I'll go to music folder, interesting minds, Python, maybe in the day 3 demo is here, open it. Okay, I got it. Close this one. Just open this one, clear the field. After clearing the field, so now I'm going to consider like this. Maybe s is equal to I'm gonna consider it as maybe. Okay, my name I would like to take it as Sagar Ram. So this is what I'll be considering. And when I do this, and if I try to print it, so I'll be getting it as it is, which you know that from the last class. So I'll be getting like this. So instead of this, if I want to send it to the next line, I can use a escape character called as /n. So I can see, okay, I'll do the changes here itself. Copy this, paste it back, and here you are gonna add it as /n. So save it, and execute it. So I can see you'll get it in the new line. So this is for new line character. So in the same way, I have few more, escape characters which I want to show it here for you. So I will paste it back, and this time I'm gonna tell it as /t, save and execute. If in case if I use, so it is going to give me a tab space. So that is the meaning of T. N means new line, T means a tab space. So you're gonna get a result like this. Let me do it here. I'll give you the notes anyways. I have it which I have typed one. So that only I'm going to give it for you. So after that, so if in case if you want any other kind of things, you can use it out. The escape characters which I'm going to show it for you. So this I've just show it as an example, and you can try it out for the other things which the notes I will be giving it for you. Let me go back here. Yep. So the following are very various and very important escape characters in Python. So which I'm going to consider it here. Okay. So first one, /n for new line, /t horizontal tab, R for carriage return. This often we'll use in the regular expression. So next you have a backspace, next form field, vertical tab. If you want a single quote, double quote, backslash symbol, and so on. And one more thing is there called as constants. So what are these constants? A fixed value, that's all. There is no that much special meaning in that. So constants concept is not applicable in Python. It's a old one which is not there, but it's a convention to use the upper cases if you want to change the value. Say suppose if you are using the max value, so change it as a uppercase so that it is a fixed value. That's how people will be considering it. It is just a convention, but we can change the value. There is absolutely no problem. So let me do one thing. Constant, this concept I will remove because it's legacy, it's not there. If you can easily change the value, there is no problem at all. So this is the escape character. Try to use it out with the wordings which are given there, right? Yes. So let me go back and show you what are the things that we have seen today. So today our class started with the list concept. We have seen the introduction again, and I'm telling. So all the 14 data types I should be completing it here as an introduction part that I've done it. So again, I'll come back. This is not only the list. There are so many other things are there with respect to list. I have to speak. The same thing applicable for the tuple and the set and dictionary also. String also have to redo it. So in detail with memory mapping. So list introduction we have seen, and later tuple the introduction we have seen. So followed by we have also seen with respect to the range data type, and not only that we have also seen with respect to the set, and everything have its own features. Just go through the notes once and see the programs and watch the video maybe 2 times if you are not getting in one point. So after observing, try to analyze it in your mind. Okay, list means what are the characters? Okay, order of insertion is maintained. It is mutable in nature. Duplicates are allowed. Like this, you have to recall the point so that only these concepts will stick into the mind. Same thing for tuple and set and dictionary. So set we have seen, and followed by frozen set, and dictionary part, and followed by the last one none and range, and including escape text. This doesn't come under the data type, but still I've done it for you. So I'll close this, and if I come back for the data type, one notes which I've already shared with you. Python contains the inbuilt data types like this. All these things are in individual data types, like fundamental data types. And later you have seen this also today, byte array, range, and list, tuple, set, and dictionary. But today I want to show you something like, whether these things are mutable or immutable. That is the main thing. So I would like to tell it as immutable, right? Mutable, right? So this you have to keep it in the mind. I'll copy it. After copying, go back to each and every line. Observe, float is immutable. Do you agree? Yes, all the fundamental data types are immutable. That means you cannot modify it. So string is also immutable. Done. Coming to the bytes, tell me only to 0 to 256 you are having. So it is also immutable. This is also immutable. Range, today I have seen this is also immutable. When it comes to the list, you tell me, recall and tell me, is that mutable or immutable? Very good. It is mutable. You can modify it. But tuple, tell me, is that mutable or immutable? It is, it is, it is. Very good. It is immutable. Okay, this is how the interviewer is gonna confuse you when you go for a interview, like by asking the question multiple times here and there. Stick on to the concept. Never go out of it. Coming to the set, tell me mutable or immutable. Yes. Can we add? Can we remove? Yes. It is mutable in nature. And frozen set, it is immutable in nature. It's the same like set itself, but it is immutable. Now coming to dictionary, is that mutable or immutable? 100% it is mutable. Is that clear for everyone? So in the fundamental data type, all the 5 are immutable, and intermediate data type, all the 3 are immutable. Advanced data type, list, set, and dictionary is mutable, whereas tuple and frozen set is immutable. And mutable and immutable concept is not applicable for the none. So I would like to tell it as it is not applicable, right? Okay, so this is what you have to understand it here. So I'll copy paste it for you. So copy it, close it, and we have done with all the concepts under the data types. The introduction part has been done. So this I'm gonna paste it at the last. I think list data type, I have not put the example. Okay. I'll change, I'll see after the class and let me put it out. Okay, it's not showing. So the changes that we have done, that's okay, not a problem. I'll do the changes and I'm gonna send it for you. That's all for the day. So I think the basic data types part is done. So next class we'll see with respect to operators, and after the operator, input output statements and control flow. So after the control flow, the functions and the variables part, and again coming back to data types, searching them in detail, reading it out, then the OOPS concept, and so on, right? So please watch the video carefully and go through the notes properly, type and execute, and without seeing the previous class, don't see the next class. You'll be having a gap between that, so don't do that. Every day have a consistency and see it out, right? Yes. So we're gonna see it in the next class, maybe in the Python class 5. So today happens to be the end of Python class 4. Thank you so much for attending. So have a great day. Bye.